I think Nick Sirianni is going to get the most out of Jalen Hurts, and I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a solid, if not spectacular year, but I think it'll be good enough to warrant bringing him back as Eagles starter in 2022.
Wednesday get together on Bert 365 with the Mac guy, Mullen and McDonald. Oh, we've got a visitor here to Birds 365. He has brightened our door before, and we're glad to have him back on the show. Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com hops aboard with us. How's your summer going, Jeff?
It's going pretty good, Jody. Just came back from a month off and ready for the NFL season at this point.
Got to ramp it up, and it's list season, Jeff, and I want to give you credit because you had one of the best lists. I'm not a big list guy, but people love them. And I think yours was really inventive, really good, because you rated the quarterback coach tandems. And I think that's more important than just the quarterbacks, just the coaches. So I want to compliment you to start, but I also want to rip you with number 10. How could Jimmy Garoppolo be in the top 10 of anything, Jeff Kerr? Even with Kyle
I did put it as the first sentence. How can you put Jimmy Garoppolo on this list? And it was pretty much who was going to beat those two out compared to what they've accomplished so far. Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy, if they would have played the whole year last year together, I think I would have put them on. Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer, I was on the fence about, and Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray just didn't win enough. So I just kind of went to my top 10 list from the year before and said, you know what? I got to give these two credit. The 49ers were terrible without Jimmy G last year, and they'll probably be off this list by week 2 or week 3 if I update it, because Trey Lance will probably be the starting quarterback.
And I'll give you one that's going to be rapidly going up that list. You just mentioned them. You left them off the list. Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury are going to have a nice year this year. They are going to be my upset choice in the NFC West. I think people are well underrating them, including Jeff Kerr, before the season starts. But I digress.
I'm actually a big Kyler Murray fan, believe it or not. So
okay, so that 2 + 2 = 4. You're not a Cliff Kingsbury fan. If you are a Kyler Murray fan and they're not on your top 10 list, you don't like the coach there in Arizona, huh? I'm still on the fence about him. There were a lot of things Cliff Kingsbury did last year I didn't like. I think he's a decent coach. It's one of those where I thought Cliff Kingsbury was Kyler Murray's biggest deterrent last year. I thought he threw him way too much, just tried to rely on that offense way too much. It was kind of like Andy Reid with Donovan McNabb with the 2000 Eagles. I mean, the only difference is they had a choice. They had receivers. They had a decent running back in Kenyon Drake. They had a good offensive line. And what does Cliff Kingsbury do? Oh, my quarterback has a shoulder injury, which he repeatedly denied multiple times, including to me, and pretty much just went, I'm going to throw him 40, 45 times a game, and I'm going to run him about another 10 to 15 times a game, basically until his body just deteriorated in week 17. The Cardinals should have been a playoff team last year. They were good enough to make the playoffs last year. As a matter of fact, they played John Wolford in week 17 last year. They should have made the playoffs, and Kyler Murray got hurt, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Jeff, because people forget Kyler Murray was hurt. People forget how well Kyler Murray was playing before that shoulder injury, and then it went downhill. And that's my concern. I've said that with Jody. Look, the kid's not big. And the way Cliff Kingsbury plays that offense with 5 wides, he's getting hit all the time, even though he's obviously very skilled to avoid the rush. I'm concerned that he's not going to be a long-term fixture in this league because of the way they play offense. Am I off base there?
No, I don't think so. And I love Dan Arnold when he was with the Cardinals. And, of course, what do the Cardinals do? Oh, we're going to let him go to Carolina. We're not even going to sign him. We're going to run it back with Max Williams, and that's a terrible move for them. I love how they added Rondale Moore. I think he's going to be really good in that offense. I love the A.J. Green signing for them. Andy Isabella is pretty much an afterthought there, and he had a really good rookie year for them as a deep threat. They have the weapons. They have the offensive line. I think they have the defense that's more than good enough to compete. Vance Joseph finally got those man corners, if you will, and Malcolm Butler and Dre Kirkpatrick. I think Dre Kirkpatrick's still there. I got to double check that. But Malcolm Butler's there now. So I like that. I think the Cardinals should go to the playoffs this year. But this year. But you're right. This is what I worry about with this team. Is Kyler Murray going to be healthy enough for the whole year? And I thought Brent Hundley was a good enough backup for them last year. But of course, he, again, it's just this team revolves around Kyler Murray. And if he's only a 5 or 6 year fix, then why'd you waste a number 1 overall pick on him if you're going to get him killed?
My crystal ball tells me Kyler Murray stays healthy all year long. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. It's a little fuzzy, but that's my crystal ball as of right now. Here's what I liked so much about your article on CBSSports.com, Jeff, about the combos between the quarterback and the coaches. You started off by putting your choices from last year right there for everybody to see. Take a look at what I said last year, and then you go through this year's list. So good on you for saying, let's comp these two things. Number 5 last year, Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson.
I still laugh about it.
Oh, that one's kind of gone by the wayside. Divorce, as big a divorce as you could possibly have. Neither of the two individuals still here. I didn't see it. You didn't. I'm kind of poking fun. I'm pimping you.
Why wouldn't they be number 5? Isn't like
I predicted this to happen, but man, it went bad here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
That was the funny thing, Jody, and I think that's why I got so upset over the whole Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson thing last year, was because when I wrote that piece, that duo was a legit top 5 duo in this league. If you looked at their success, going to the playoffs every year, Carson Wentz was so integral in that team going to the Super Bowl. I mean, really, if Carson Wentz is healthy the whole year, I probably could have made a case they were top 3 just based on how young he was and what Doug Peterson was doing. Not too many Eagles coaches go to the playoffs 3 consecutive years and even win a playoff game in back-to-back years. And Doug Peterson did that, and those two just fell off the rails. I don't know if it was COVID. I don't know if it was Carson Wentz as a practice guy and the practice time. From the stories you hear about the locker room, I mean, John knows it's just so frustrating what transpired there, and all because the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts. Like, you were that insecure about your job, you had to worry about this. Like, if I was Carson Wentz, I would have walked in that locker room last year and put my ego up and say, look, I'm Carson Wentz. I should have been the MVP 3 years ago. I'm the best quarterback in football. This little kid ain't going to beat me out for a job. And he did the exact opposite. And everybody hated the Aaron Rodgers comparison, but it was very fair. Aaron Rodgers didn't even let Jordan Love sniff the field last year.
Yeah. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers did exactly that. He said, oh, you want to trap that? I'm going to go win the MVP. And then afterwards, you rip the general manager and say, what the hell are you doing? That's what Carson Wentz should have taken.
Did. And I think everybody in this city would have supported him.
Yeah, they certainly would have when it comes to Howie Roseman. But, nobody should have criticized you for having Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson at number 5. But I do think it's a good example of how quickly things can move in the NFL. And also on the list from last year was Sean McVay and Jared Goff. Now, you look at those two players, and obviously they were 1-2, so there's the irony of that in the same draft. $33.8 million for Carson Wentz. That's what the Eagles ate. $22.2 million, I think, was the number the Rams ate for Jared Goff. And these were 2 top 10 quarterback coach tandems coming into the league. And as I said, you weren't wrong. So I do want to talk to the thought process that everything stays in sort of a stasis in this league when it comes to star players. It's just not the way it is. Things move so quickly. So when you looked at this list, was there any younger group that you thought they're going to break through? There's a chance that they're going to be high on this list next year.
Well, definitely one, if they make a run, Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski. And I've been arguing with the Kevin Stefanski haters for pretty much a year now. I'm like, you guys do know this Browns team wasn't that great last year. Like, overall, I thought they had a below average defense. I thought the running game carried them. Baker Mayfield was a really good game manager. They had injuries across the board. I didn't think they were going to do what they did last year. And when I looked at the expected win rate when I was just going through analytics and stuff. They were supposed to win 7 games. They were supposed to be 7-9 if you look at their numbers, and they ended up winning 11 in a playoff game. Their first road playoff win as a franchise since 1969. That's Coach of the Year material to me. And now they are talented. They got Odell Beckham back. They still got Nick Chubb. They still got Kareem Hunt. The offensive line's better. The defensive line's better. Myles Garrett's arguably the best pure pass rusher in the league. Not named Aaron Donald, I should say. But it's one of those where if Cleveland doesn't go to the divisional round of the playoffs this year, I'm going to be concerned about them. And I think Cleveland Browns fans should be hype about that. And same with Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. I think those two can get that much higher. And all they have to do is go to the AFC Championship game again, because that's how high of a pedestal I put Josh Allen on last year. I thought he was tremendous. I think McDermott has done wonders in Buffalo. If there's two duos on this list, I think that can crack the top 5. It's those two.
Want to check your list in one other aspect, and maybe I just don't understand it, so I'm going to have you explain it to me. I get the fact that it's a snapshot. 12 months ago, you snapshotted where teams were at, where the league was at, where this quarterback and coach combination fits, and now you're doing it the same with all the changes. Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, shockingly not on the list, 12 months later. Last year, at number 10, going into the season, you had Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur. Certainly Aaron Rodgers winning the MVP is going to move him up the list. But, oh, by the way, he wants out in the worst way. If you're going to factor everything in, both what he accomplished during the year and what's transpired since, I guess it's more so. Why were Rodgers and LaFleur only number 10 last year? Because you got them way up the list this year coming in, and we don't even know if they're going to be together by the time the season opens up. Why was Rodgers and LaFleur number 10 last year?
So I brought up this when I was making the list. How high did I want to put those two? And I said, you know what? In my heart of hearts, Aaron Rodgers is going to be in Green Bay this year. I just don't think he's going to go anywhere. And I looked at it as, well, right now he is a Green Bay Packer. And right now he is with Matt LaFleur. And I had him at 10 after their first year. One of my main reasons was when I did it, and I wrote, I just need to see more. 13-3 is awesome. NFC Championship game is awesome. And it wasn't a knock on Aaron Rodgers. It was a knock on Matt LaFleur. Was this a one-year wonder? Was this guy, okay, it was a new system, something fresh, is Green Bay going to be this good again? And they ended up being the number 1 seed and actually blowing the NFC Championship game. I thought they were going to beat Tampa Bay and actually play Green Bay, Kansas City in the Super Bowl. And they didn't, but I still felt because of what Carroll and Wilson did at the end of last year and Peterson and Wentz being off, Drew Brees retiring, so there went Drew Brees and Sean Payton. And, I knew there was going to be a changing of the guard there. Took Goff and McVay are out. Garoppolo and Shanahan were going to go down. I'm like, you know what? I got to do it. These guys got to be in the top 3. I mean, they went to back-to-back NFC Championship games. The only team to do that was the Chiefs, and you could easily argue they could have been in consecutive Super Bowls. So I said, you know what? 2 years is enough. 26 wins between the two of them. That's the most in the league. I had to do it. Second most in the league. I had to do it. I had to put them up that high. So it was pretty much, okay, these guys are going to rise up. But yet, was number 10 low last year? I thought it was kind of fair, just based on the small body of work. And that's kind of like what I did with Mayfield and Stefanski this year. I was like, okay, good start. Let's see if you guys can move up.
Jeff, you kind of mentioned Mayfield and Stefanski a couple times there, and I'm with you. I think Kevin is a really good coach. I'm not as high on Baker Mayfield. I told you I'm not high on Jimmy Garoppolo. So when you go through this process, how much can the coach elevate the quarterback, and how much can the quarterback elevate the coach? Because I think Aaron Rodgers has been elevating a couple of coaches over the years, including Matt LaFleur. I'm not as high on Matt LaFleur as most people. How much does that dichotomy can shift to your thought process, and how much can a coach help the quarterback and vice versa?
I think, honestly, it just depends on the duo. Like you said, John, Kevin Stefanski, I think, elevated Baker Mayfield tremendously. And it's kind of awkward. And I know no one from that 2018 class has been signed yet, but it's kind of awkward how Cleveland has pretty much took this approach of wait and see with Baker Mayfield this year. Can this guy do this again? And if he does do it again, are you going to pay him what a number one draft pick from 2018 should make when you know Lamar Jackson's been better? You know Josh Allen has been better. How much does this guy make? Are is this a game of poker right now? Who's going to, bluff or blackjack? Who's at 16 right now and wants to go up? That's what I'm concerned about with Baker Mayfield. I don't even know if he's going to be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns in 2 years. So, that definitely had a lot to do with Stefanski. But I was looking at Mayfield's numbers last year, and I'm like, you know what? He's done a lot for that franchise. And I took a lot of that into account. Like, when's the last time the Cleveland Browns have had a steady quarterback? Can we name one since 1999? Tim Couch is probably the last quarterback that's probably been starting there more than 3 years. It's kind of concerning. So I think Baker Mayfield and the impact he's made on that franchise has done a lot for them, even though he may not be the long-term answer. But it was definitely more lean towards Stefanski. But for the quarterback perspective, I always looked at it as, obviously the top five both are really strong, like Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, those guys. I mean, Rodgers on the floor was the one controversial one, but, I can't argue against results, and results put them as high as they were. And, which Sean McDermott and Josh Allen, I know McDermott doesn't technically call the plays, but he's been with Josh Allen from day one, and look what they've done. 2 playoff appearances, 2 playoff wins. It's, an AFC Championship game appearance. Buffalo actually looks like a Super Bowl contender. They should be a Super Bowl contender this year. I factor a lot into it. And can it be inconsistent at times? Yeah, but I like to make my point of what this quarterback has done, what this coach has done, and why they are where they are.
Jeff, I do like the unique aspect of combining the two, quarterback and coach. But they are separate entities, and they certainly were not even a consideration for you because you made your list as what they've already accomplished. So first-year coaches and or quarterbacks wouldn't be looked at. I like it. But we will look at both of these guys throughout the entire year, and we'll have an evaluation of them at the end of the year. We got a sneak peek of Jalen Hurts last year for a couple of games at the end of the season. We have no idea what kind of head coach Nick Sirianni is going to be in the league. We can go back and judge some of the things that the Indianapolis offense was before he got the job here in Philadelphia. But here's my question for you. Crystal ball stuff. And I told you, my crystal ball is good. Kyler Murray is going to play all 16 games this year. But I need you to look in your crystal ball. At the end of the year, we're going to have rankings of both the head coaches in the league and the quarterbacks in the league. Whose number is going to be lower? Jalen Hurts compared to the other 31 quarterbacks in the league, or Nick Sirianni as compared to the other 31 coaches in the league?
I think Nick Sirianni is going to get the most out of Jalen Hurts, and I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a solid, if not spectacular year, but I think it'll be good enough to warrant bringing him back as Eagles starter in 2022. And unless you can get some ultra quarterback, if the Eagles go, say, 8-9 this year, which is where I predicted them to go, I think that's good enough to retain Jalen Hurts, and I think that's Nick Sirianni overachieving as a head coach. So I think at the end of the year, I think we're going to see like Nick Sirianni maybe top 20 of head coach list, but I still think you're going to see your Jalen Hurts haters, the Chris Simses of the world, or the hot take artists who say, he doesn't have an arm and he doesn't have the. I think that's what's going to surprise people this year. Jalen Hurts is going to have an arm, and Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor are going to make sure of that.
Jeff, every time I see Aaron Rodgers' numbers, I'm in awe. I'm just in awe. And you put the quarterback numbers up, and what was it last year? I'm trying to put 48-5, 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions.
It's insane.
It is unbelievable. And I know I wrote a story myself. Carson Wentz had 15 interceptions last year. And Jalen Hurts, I think, had 4. So you had 2 starting quarterbacks. So you go back, 2020, he had 5 interceptions. 2019, he had 4. 2018, he had 2. 2017, he had 6. You can go back 4 seasons to get to the number of interceptions from Aaron Rodgers, the Eagles quarterbacks, threw last year. That's how good this guy is. My question to you is, if Aaron Rodgers is someplace else, and he would be most likely in Denver, where Vic Fangio is a defensive coach, how quickly does that tandem get in the top 5? How quickly does Aaron Rodgers and Ron Rivera? How quickly does Aaron Rodgers and Jeff Kerr? How quickly does Aaron Rodgers and John McMullen get in this top 5? This guy is so above everybody else. I got to put him number 1. That's my only argument with your list, no matter who he is, no matter where he is.
Yeah, and you know what, John, you make a great point. And honestly, I've considered it, but it's not. I can't blame Aaron Rodgers for pretty much anything on Green Bay. I think the only concern for me is I look at his NFC Championship game numbers, at least since he beat the Bears, and I'm like, how did this happen? Like, how does this guy lose so many NFC Championship games? Does he try too hard? Does he just not have the weapons? He does have the weapons. He has Aaron Jones. He has Devontae Adams. Everybody wants to get on Alan Lazard and Marcus Valdes-Scantling and Robert Tonyan, but they're decent receivers, and they're better than anything Tom Brady had in New England those last couple of years. And Brady found a way to make it work. And maybe the Packers' defense isn't good enough. I don't know. That's going to be one of the biggest mysteries to me if Aaron Rodgers doesn't get a second Super Bowl. Like you said, John, just look at the numbers. The guy has thrown a total of 15 interceptions over the last 4 or 5 years. It's criminally insane. And when he throws a couple in the NFC Championship game where he fumbles the ball, I'm like, oh, if I'm using winning as a precursor here to success, you gotta put that into account. And I mean, normally if I had to rank the quarterback, just strictly the quarterbacks, but okay, Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, they're 1 and 1A, or Mahomes and Rodgers are 1 and 1A, and after that it's okay. But then when you're doing the quarterback head coach duos, you're gotta be like, okay, so how much does Matt LaFleur bring him down? How much does he raise him up? Well, he doesn't raise him up. So I look at it as I was really concerned with Matt LaFleur in the NFC Championship game last year. He just didn't look like the same coach that he was throughout the season. And I am the biggest criticizer of the NFC North. I think it is the weakest division in football every single year. I think the Bears are normally a joke. I think the Lions are a joke. And the Vikings are the Vikings. So I'm like, well, okay, when you get those bottom feeders to feed on every year, you're going to win a lot of games. But, I can't argue with the results between the two. But then when they start playing the big boys, Tampa Bay or who went to the Super Bowl the year before? I shouldn't call them a big boy, but San Francisco, they were really good in 2019. I just feel like Green Bay shouldn't lose to teams like this, and they keep finding ways to do it.
We suggest everybody check out Jeff's work at CBSSports.com. Certainly this article that brings forth a lot of debate on quarterback-coach combos. But I also got to give you credit for your previous article, which was about a Philadelphia Eagle legend, Harold Carmichael, who just was enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And the headline grabbed my attention, and I said, wait a minute, what the hell are they talking about? Harold Carmichael said when he was getting inducted the other day that I might not have been drafted when I came out of college with the NFL the way that they played. I said, what are you talking about? He's the greatest receiver in the history of the Eagles. Of course he would be drafted. Well, he was a 7th-round draft pick back then. And the way that both you and Harold laid it out was right on point, that the game had changed drastically. A guy of my age, I certainly remember Harold Carmichael like it was yesterday and watched his entire career, but you don't realize that the game has changed drastically, and Harold would have been a different player at his size with his capabilities in the NFL today. Personally, I believe Harold Carmichael would still be a star. And if he wasn't drafted, he would have shown up in somebody's camp. He would have played, and he would have said, damn, we got to sign this guy. But it was a very unique way of looking at things. And Harold kind of said it without even batting an eye that he actually believed he wouldn't have been drafted. Did that just make your eyes roll the same way it did for me when I read your article, Jeff?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because once the illegal contact rule came into place, his numbers skyrocketed. Like, he had 3 1,000-yard wide receiver seasons, and he was one of the best wide receivers from 78 to 81. Like, he was a good receiver and became a great receiver those years. And you saw the Eagles offense just take off as a result. I mean, he was so integral in them making a Super Bowl. So I'm like, wait a minute. And then, then when he said it, I was like, okay, yeah, he's right, because they look at speed today, and he just did not have speed. And he admitted that. He said, well, I ran 4.6s and they became 4.5s because I was tall, and anything within 3 inches I caught. And that was a nightmare for defensive backs. Well, he's probably thinking, okay, say we have a scouting combine, or heck, even in 1971, if the illegal contact rules in effect,
yeah,
he's probably like, well, wait a minute, I run 4.6, I'm too slow. They're going to make me a tight end. And they did make him a tight end his early years with the Eagles in 71, 72. He kind of mixed matched, playing wide receiver and tight end. And it probably would have just kept him there. And, he said back then, tight end obviously was so different because you're more of a blocker. You're not a receiver. Not everybody was Charlie Young or Jackie Smith or Mike Ditka. They just weren't that. But, Carmichael was just looking at it as, I may not have even gotten a chance. And he probably right. And, I think he said, basically, all those years I had to endure the physical punishment and playing the head games of wide receiver, that's what made me successful. Because by year 8, I knew what I was doing, and I knew this was going to benefit me. But if that was in year 1, he may have just never had the opportunity.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm glad you brought that up at the end, because that was my sort of take on it. Harold would have got drafted, but he would have been a tight end in the modern game. They would have moved him to the flex tight end position, where he would have been the king size receiver like we see all over the place. They would have given him a chance, but he wouldn't have been a wide receiver. On the other hand, you mentioned Jerry Rice, and by the way, I can't argue with Jerry Rice. He thinks his numbers would have been doubled in the modern NFL. I can't disagree with him either, because, you can go over the middle now and you don't have to worry about anything. And, Jerry Rice is so far ahead of the second wide receiver, whoever you want to say that is. In my estimation, it's probably Randy Moss for me. But, Jerry's so far above number 2. Do you think he could just shatter every NFL record under the current environment?
I think he would have been that guy who caught 160 passes for like 2,000 yards every year, especially in a 17. Can you imagine just what Jerry Rice was? I mean, the guy had 1,000 yards at 40 years old, for Christ's sake. So we know how good Jerry Rice was. And I still think it's funny because I grew up watching Steve Young throw touchdown passes to Jerry Rice, and I'm like, this guy's 36. Like, they shouldn't be doing this. He tears a ligament and still comes back dominant. It's almost kind of shocking the 49ers actually let him leave. And I remember him saying, I still got a lot of football left in me. And, I'm 12 years old. I'm rolling my eyes. I'm like, yeah, okay, Jerry. Like, most 37, 38-year-olds quit. Even Reggie White quit football. And, what does he do? Oh, look, I'm going to catch a touchdown in a Super Bowl at 40 with the Raiders. And I'm going to play them on 42, 43 and just go from team to team until they don't want me anymore. And that's pretty much what happened. I still laugh at the end of a lot of these great receivers' career. Tim Brown playing with the Bucs, Jerry Rice playing with the Broncos and the Seahawks. It's so weird. Isaac Bruce with the 49ers. And, these guys are in like their late 30s when they were doing this. And I'm just amazed. I don't think we're going to see that with a lot of receivers anymore. I think the Larry Fitzgeralds are starting to kind of go by the wayside, because I thought Brandon Marshall was a great receiver for a lot of years. And, he's 34, 35. He's out of football.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right, Jeff, here's my last question for you. And it's one you can answer, but you might not be able to answer. I'll explain what I mean. If you had carte blanche, which we know no one does these days because there are still COVID restrictions on both teams and media members want to cover them, you can Zoom your life away, but you would prefer to be there watching it with your own 2 eyes and being able to talk to whoever you need to tell the best story. If you take drama aside, and that means quarterback drama like Aaron Rodgers versus the Packers and Deshaun Watson versus his masseuses, and you put them aside and you're just talking about pure football stories, if you had the ability to go anywhere, anytime you wanted in the next upcoming weeks, what football story are you doing?
We're talking about current players, right?
Current teams going into this season, not just players, but players, teams, the 2021 NFL story that needs to be told as camps open up, not related to drama, just to football. what story you telling?
I think I would want to tell the story of Patrick Mahomes. And I kind of did this last summer, believe it or not. I got to talk to Patrick Mahomes in week 4 of the year, and I'd love to do that again and pretty much see what a guy like him does in the offseason to prepare. And I remember I asked him last year, you're already like the greatest quarterback on the planet. Do you feel you need to improve? And I thought it was like a minor question. I just remember it blowing up all over the place when he said, no, I really feel like I could get better. And he went into like this deep dive on what he needed to improve on. And I didn't even think anything of it. I just put it in the story, and the next thing you know, it's on ESPN, it's on, Pro Football Talk, it's everywhere. Oh, look what Patrick Mahomes said. He thinks he can be this. And I'm like, geez, that was like my 5th question on the list. I would love to talk to Patrick Mahomes again, just to get, an insight on how he prepares in the offseason, what he does. I know he has a house. I know he has his own training center that he kind of just works out to himself. And I know he kind of gets together with Chiefs receivers, but I'd love to be basically on that field with them, just him balling out with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and those guys, just kind of laugh and be like, man, we're going to tear up the league this year. And I just love to, just kind of watch like a 3-4 hour session of them and talking to them, just playing football.
A quick comment, and John, I'll let you get your last question in. You know what Patrick Mahomes could improve upon? His State Farm commercials, because Aaron Rodgers is better than he is.
Oh, he
Chris
kills him.
Better than he
kills
is.
Him in that too. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in football. Patrick Mahomes is great, but Aaron's better in the State Farm. He's better at everything. But I would go with Carson Wentz, but Jody didn't allow drama. I want to see what Carson Wentz does with Frank Reich in Indianapolis. Just the football. You take the drama out. Can he get back to, forget about 2017, 2018, 2019, or is the old Carson Wentz kaput, Jeff Kerr?
I'll tell you what, John. This is what I've been thinking in the back of my head. Was he a one-year wonder? Was 2017 or pre-ACL? Was that it? Is he going to be one of those guys where, man, if he didn't tear his ACL, what would have happened to him? Colts fans were really excited about him. And I tried telling them, I'm like, look, I don't want to be like Mr. Negative here, because I think he can have a bounce back year, but don't be surprised if it goes the same direction it did last year with Philadelphia. Things start going bad. Like, how's this guy going to react? And, is the fresh start moving to Indianapolis what he needed, or is he just kind of like Simba in The Lion King and running away from his problem? That's what I really want to know with this guy, because I feel like what's going to happen when he has his first multi-interception game, or, he's not lighting the world on fire, or for whatever reason. I mean, the Colts barely brought in any competition for him, so they obviously know that rattles him. So, yeah, John, that would be a good one. I still want to know what happened in Philadelphia. Well, I don't think we're ever going to get that answer.
Yeah, Colts fans, be careful if Jacob Eason starts looking good in camp. Things could go south in Indy real fast. Beware the backup quarterback with Carson Wentz. Hey, Jeff, great stuff. We appreciate your giving us your time. Your insight is fun to talk about. I really enjoyed the Harold Carmichael interview. You guys got to see the column that Jeff did on CBSSports.com. No, we got a ton of Eagle fans out there that are devotees to Harold Carmichael, all-time great with the Eagles, and you did a good job telling a story with him. Thanks for coming on, telling stories with us today, buddy.
Thanks, Joey. You know what? I still regret this, and I said it yesterday after I was in on the Carmichael Zoom call. I'm like, why did I not apply for my Hall of Fame credential? Why am I not going to Canton to see Harold Carmichael this year? I thought about it, and I wanted to do it 2 weeks ago, and I said, yeah, you know what, with Eagles camp and all that, I'm going to be so busy. Yeah. I'm not going to have time for that. I'm like, you know what,
now,
Jeff,
don't feel bad, Jeff, because I forgot the Zoom call. Forget about the Hall of Fame. But the reason why
I was wondering why I didn't see it yesterday.
Yeah, I forgot. I totally forgot. In-person availability, they don't have any, so that I tapped out. So why go if you can't talk to the guys in person? So I'm with you, but the Hall of Fame is great. You got to go. Everybody should go at least once, but it's one of the best things about the NFL year. But it's got to get back to normal, and I'll be back.
And we're all looking forward to it.
I was like that too. When the Eagles won Super Bowl, I said, you know what? I'm going to Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm going and seeing all this stuff. Best time ever, just because they unveiled the Eagles Super Bowl championship video that day I was there, and it was full of Eagles fans, and one Patriots fan, and I never saw a guy get so ridiculed in my life. He walked out after, the Philly special. He couldn't even watch the second half.
Oh, sorry about that, Patriots fan. Jeff, great stuff. Thanks for coming out with us. Appreciate it. It is our buddy Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com. You really do need to check both of the articles he's put up in the last 24 hours. One being about coaching quarterback combos, the other about an all-time great in this town, Harold Carmichael. John McMullen, Jody McDonald coming back. We need to put a bow on the show here on this edition of Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.